Thank you, Pastor Lee. Good to see you, my friend. Appreciate it. I want us to turn our attention to the Gospel of John, chapter 13, and perhaps a familiar scene to us. And read about that. I want to be reading from the New Living Translation. John chapter 13, beginning at verse 1. It says, "Before the Passover celebration, Jesus knew that his hour had come to leave this world and return to his Father. He had loved his disciples during his ministry on earth, and now he loved them to the very end. It was time for supper, and the devil had already prompted Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. And Jesus knew that the Father had given him authority over everything, and he had come from God and would return to God. So he got up from the table, took off his robe, wrapped a towel around his waist, and poured water into a basin. And then he began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel he had around him." We'll come back to verse 6 in just a moment. This is a much discussed and sometimes imitated scene. Jesus washing the disciples' feet. It was typically a job for a servant or a slave to wash the feet of those that were guests in a home. When the master would get home for the day on the dusty streets, and anyone who was with him, they would come in and they would be expecting a foot washing. Walking in sandals on dusty roads and streets and dirty feet, they would expect there to be a servant or a slave at the door with a towel and a basin of water ready to clean and wash their feet. Anybody ever been a part of a foot washing service? Are you nervous that we're going to do that now? Does that make anybody else nervous? Sometimes I just got to confess. Sometimes when they tell you that's going to happen, I'm a little, because my feet are not, well, they're not beautiful. They're not great. That's not going to happen here. Sometimes it makes us nervous to think about somebody else washing us in any form or fashion. If you've been in the hospital and been so sick that you were not able to clean yourself and others had to do that, it can be a humbling and maybe even embarrassing moment. I'll tell you about an embarrassing moment of being washed. We have two daughters, Julie and I, Janae and Jana. They're 27 and almost 26. And about 25 years ago, Julie and a friend of hers were out shopping and kind of having a mom's day off. And I was with her friend's husband, my friend Rick, and we were at his apartment with my two daughters and his daughter. Our two older, my daughter and his oldest were 3 years old, my younger daughter was 2. And we were in this 2-bedroom apartment, and we're in the living room. It's a Saturday, we're trying to watch a ball game. I'm laying on the couch. He's reclined in the lazy boy. We're doing really good child supervision. And the 3 girls are down the hall, playing in the bedroom as far as we know. And we at least knew that they were in the apartment somewhere. And they're down the hall, and Janae, my older one, shows up, and she's got a rag, and I'm laying on the couch, and she comes up to me, and she says, "Daddy, I wash your face. I wash your face." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, Janae." And she starts dabbing water all over my face and washing me, and then she goes back down the hall. Rick and I continue to watch the ball game. A few minutes later, Janae comes back, and she says, "Daddy, I wash your face." Like, okay, Janae. And she starts rubbing water all over my face, and it's starting to get a little more wet than I would like. But, I'm engrossed in this game and talking to my friend, and she goes back down the hall. And a third time, she comes down. "Daddy, I wash your face." And she continues to wash my face, and getting it pretty well saturated by this time. The position we were in, this 2-bedroom apartment, Rick's recliner was kind of towards the back of the living room, and as he reclined, he could look all the way down the hallway to where the girls were. And just a moment or two later, he looks over and he says, "You know what, Buzz? She's not getting that water from the sink." Some washings are better than others. On this day that we read about in John's Gospel, there was no servant assigned to the upper room where Jesus and his disciples were gathering on that last night together. No servant ready there with towel and basin. And they've come in and they've gathered, they've got the dirty feet and all that goes with that. So who's going to do the foot washing? Maybe they all assumed somebody would show up to do that. Somebody did. We just read about it. Jesus began washing feet. Let's think about the feet that he washed. Who was walking and using those feet? Whose feet did he wash? He washed the feet of Matthew, the tax collector, the agent of financial and even spiritual betrayal to his people and to his nation. That's what it meant to be a tax collector in Roman-dominated Israel at the time. He washed the feet of Simon the Zealot, who thought that violence was the best answer to the situation. He washed the feet of Philip, who earlier had responded, "It's impossible," when Jesus told the disciples to feed the crowd of 5,000. He washed the feet of James and John, who tried to lobby their way into the best positions, the best seats in the kingdom, even so much so that they got their mother involved in it. And he even washed the feet of Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, who, well, I just have to say Judas' name, you know. That's enough. He washed their feet because evidently greed, anger, doubting the power of the Messiah, or selfish ambition, evidently those are not disqualifiers for the grace of God. Amen. And the truth is, every one of us here today needs to be washed in his grace. Look with me a little deeper in this story at the conversation when Jesus comes to wash the most famous, or at least the loudest, of his disciples. Let's look at verse 6. When Jesus came to Simon Peter, Peter said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You don't understand now what I'm doing, but someday you will." "No," Peter protested. "You will never, ever wash my feet." And Jesus replied, "Unless I wash you, you won't belong to me." Simon Peter exclaimed, "Then wash my hands and my head as well, Lord, not just my feet." It is not always easy to receive grace. We like to talk about it, we like to sing it, we hope to gain it, but it's not always easy to receive grace. And why is that? Pride? Awareness of our faults? Our failures? Even the ones that nobody else but us and the Lord know about? Peter had plenty of pride, and he had plenty of failures. Some of them very well documented. And he tried to, at one point, he tried to talk Jesus out of going to the cross. He correctly rebuked Jesus. He quit trusting Jesus in the storm. And just hours after this moment that we're reading about right here, just hours after this moment, he would deny up to 3 times, even with curses, that he never even knew Jesus. Is it pride? Is it awareness of our faults and failures? Or could it even be that a few of us somehow feel this morning that we just really don't need grace that much? I mean, when you look at our lives, the good outweighs the bad. Compare ourselves to some of our neighbors, friends, family members. feel like we stack up pretty well against them. It's good to believe, but I don't know how much grace I really need. Or maybe it's because if we really let Jesus pour out His grace on us, over us, through us, we know that things can never be the same. It brings with it a recognition that there's a higher purpose, a higher calling on us when we receive that fully. That we're then to become agents of His grace to everyone who's in our lives. Lord, You'll never wash my feet. And He says, Peter, this morning He's saying, Jeffrey, Lee, if I don't, you won't belong to me. And hopefully our response then is, well then, Lord, not just my feet, but my hands, my head, all of me, Lord. Wash me in Your grace. I need it more than anybody. To fully receive God's grace, we have to humble ourselves. There's a man named Jean Vanier, French. He's the founder of the Arc Communities, the Arch. And that's a ministry committed to helping people with intellectual and mental disabilities to live together in community with others. To give them some sense of purpose and enable them to do more on their own, to strengthen them, to love those people unconditionally. He tells the story of a man he knew who lived in Paris. His wife had Alzheimer's. This man was a very successful, important businessman in Paris. And his life was filled with busyness and achievements and accomplishments and work, and supervising others, and all the things that you can imagine go with that. But when he discovered that his wife had fallen sick, and when the Alzheimer's began to really consume her and take over her, he just felt that he just could not bring himself to put her into an institution of some kind. So he kept her, he fed her, he bathed her. And Jean Vanier tells about going to visit them in Paris. And he said this businessman whose life had just been consumed with achievement and accomplishment and gaining more and more and more, had been so busy. He went to visit this man, and the man said, I've changed through all of this. God's made me realize my humanity. And he said not long after that, he received a letter from his friend. And he said in that letter that in the middle of the night, his wife woke him up. And he said she came out of the fog of the disease for just a couple of moments. And she looked up at him and she said, darling, I just want to say thank you for all that you're doing for me. And then a couple of moments later, she fell back into the fog. And he said, I wept and I wept. I'll tell you that story this morning, not just to give you an example of giving grace and unconditional love, but just to remind us that some of us today, perhaps, need to come out of the fog. The spiritual fog that we may be living in. And just simply say, Lord, thank you for your grace. Thank you for not turning your back on me. Thank you for sacrificing everything for me. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for continuing to speak to me when I turn a deaf ear. Thank you for continuing to reach out to me when I kept going the other direction. Thank you, Lord. Now, please wash me in your grace. Jesus was essentially saying, Peter, are you going to be too proud to let me do this for you? If you are, you're going to miss out. You're going to lose everything. Really good news for us today. And the really good news that our church, that the community, the body of Christ has for a world that's so broken and a world that's so confused and a world that's so increasingly messed up. The good news that we have is that Jesus can wash and cleanse and redeem anyone. Anyone. Anyone who will listen and respond to his call today. And I believe he just longs and hungers to do that. 3 or 4 years ago, Christmas time, our whole family went to a movie together. And which is saying something that we got my father to go to a movie with us. That was the way we were raised. That was a big deal. And the movie we went to see was a great story. The movie was called War Horse. And there's a scene from that movie that really spoke to me. The story is about a young man in Great Britain during the time of World War I, the early 1900s. And he raises a smart and spirited horse out in a countryside village. And he's so close to that horse, and there's such a bond and connection. And that horse has meant so much to his family and even helped provide income for this poor family. But I didn't know that, but even in those days, not only would they draft people, young men, into the army, but they would conscript and take your horses and livestock if they needed. So this young man is drafted into battle, but also is Joey's horse. And they're both sent off to the battlefields of World War I, and they're separated from each other. And the length of the movie shows you that they go through the horrific circumstances, brutal circumstances of war. And it comes down to this scene begins to show you that it's the end of days for this horse. This horse has been through so much in battle. He's just been covered and beaten down with the effects of the struggle, and scarred and beaten and bruised, and it's terrible to see. He's completely covered and coated with mud and blood. And it's come to the point where they're just about to shoot the horse and take it out of his misery. The young man has been wounded in battle and become blind, and somehow the connection's made, and he hears about this horse, and he doesn't know for sure that it's his horse, but he makes his way to the scene, and just before they're about to shoot it, he convinces the man to just, before you do this, does the horse look like this? And he begins to describe markings of the horse on his face and on his legs. Well, the horse is caked and covered in mud and blood. They can't see any of that. So before somebody says, please wait, let's just see. And they go and they get a bucket of water, and they begin to wash the face of this horse. And they begin to wash his legs. And they see that he has the exact markings that this young man is describing, and his life is spared, and they're reunited and saved. My daughter Jana loves to see the symbolism in stories and even movies, and often calls me and talks to me about those kind of things. And that day, as we were leaving the movie theater as a family, I was walking beside Jana, and we were both weeping. I don't usually do that in movies, but unless the dog dies. But that was happening this day, and I said, Jana, do you see the truth there? There are so many people whose lives are covered in mud. The scars and results of sin and hurt and brokenness, and they're beaten down, and it seems like they're no good for anything, and the world says, just cast them aside. But Jesus says if you wash them. If you wash them off. And you look underneath all of that, you'll see the markings from me. And they belong to me. What about you? Do you see the need? Do you have a desire to be washed in the amazing grace of God today? Do you want that for others? Do you even want that for others in your life that are very difficult to love? That are very different from you, that you see and somehow you think they're a long ways away from the grace of God. But do you want them to know you washed in His grace? And do you want to be washed in His grace enough, realizing that if you are washed in His grace, then Christ will is calling you to follow His example? Sometimes I think as Christians, we kind of want to say, is there any way that I can just believe in Jesus and believe what the Bible says and believe the right things and like what Jesus said and like what He did, but, not actually have to do what He did and what He calls us to? Can't we just believe the right stuff? Isn't that enough? Do I have to actually follow His example? My daily living, all my relationships. Just believe in His birth and life and death and resurrection, but not actually have to take on this business of being a servant. In 1878, William Booth's Salvation Army had just been given its name. It still goes on in a great organization, sister church to us today. And men from all over the world began to enlist. And one man who was living in the United States had dreamed of being a bishop in the United Methodist Church. But he heard about William Booth's Salvation Army, and he felt compelled to cross the Atlantic Ocean from America to England and to sign up for the Salvation Army. His name was Samuel Logan Bringle. And he'd been a pastor at a good-sized church in America, and now he's joined the Salvation